starting to fill up, so I'm going to kick us off. Welcome everyone to today's webinar. I'm just going to do a really quick bit of housekeeping and introduction up front. We're recording this. We'll send around the recording afterwards to everyone who's registered, so don't worry about taking notes. It'd be great if you could keep yourself on mute throughout. And we'll have some time for Q&A towards the end, so do save your questions for then and come in. Or if you've got questions as we're going through, just put anything in the sidebar and we'll try and pick it up. So yeah, really pleased today to have Jackman, Brandy, and Natasha here to talk about group sponsorship. I don't want to steal their thunder, so I won't say too much. All I'll say up front is we at FAFA think that group sponsorship is absolutely key to scaling apprenticeship. This is a model we see that's worked in other countries to aggregate employer demand. You do the hard work once and repeat it. I'll also say, this is not something new. Our labour, our union programs, our multi-employer programs, where they act as a group sponsor. And yeah, if you look at the numbers, those programs have got over 150 apprentices each, whereas our single employer programs have got around 10. So a bit of quick maths. If every apprenticeship program out there today was a group sponsor operating in this way, we'd have 3 million apprentices like that. So yeah, this is really important stuff. And with that, I'm going to pass over to my friend Chapman to kick us off.
My friend Harry, thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon. It's a really good thing this webinar is today. If it was yesterday, I'd be on very short sleep after 18 innings. Go Jays. We are very excited about the Canadian World Series champion. I might be getting ahead of myself and I'm hopefully not making too many enemies, but I see some Ontario friends in the crowd. So I know I've got at least 2 friends who are going for the Jays with me today. Thank you for joining us. We're very excited. As Harry just talked about, we're big believers. We first at Vimetric, I guess I'll quick intro Jutman Bajaj, Executive Vice President of Vimetric. We first came across the concept of group sponsorship about 6 years ago up here in Ontario. What we do is we provide legally defensible skills assessment solutions. We've done this might sound crazy, but about 250 million individual skills assessments over the course of the last 15 or so years. And our apprenticeship programs across different professions and occupations. We average about 96% completion, and so we've been very fortunate to come across people like Brandy and Natasha, who I'm going to share the stage with, and who will certainly talk a lot more than me. Maybe what we'll do very quickly in sort of the 2 or 3 sentences, because team Natasha, Brandy, we'll get to know them far more deeply as the conversation goes on. But let's just go to Natasha first, Brandy second. Quick introductions. Let's say hello to the group, and then we'll kick this thing off.
Hi, my name is Natasha Sherwood. I am the Workforce Development Director for Independent Electrical Contractors Association across the country, 52 chapters. Prior to that, the Executive Director in Florida for Independent Electrical Contractors. And as Harry pointed out, we are able to lift a great amount of apprentices. I think we have 568 right now in Florida, just in our electrical. So, but more proud mom of 4 and recovering college for all addict. And so doing my best to help others get that opportunity as well.
Over to you, Brandy.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandy Gonzalez. I serve as the VP of Operations for Florida Trade Academy. We are a private nonprofit intermediary. We kind of just connect the pieces for large intermediaries, employers, stakeholders across community sector. We also run one of Florida's largest independent registered apprenticeship group programs with over 100 employers participating in an automotive occupation. So I'm very excited to tell you guys more about that. My background is in software development. I worked in big tech for about 7-8 years and pivoted into nonprofit, more interested in workforce development overall rather than just building things. That's a little bit about me. I'm very excited to talk to you all today.
Thank you, Brandy, and thank you again, everybody in the room. So for everybody in the room, just in the chat, if we can do a quick Q&A, and Jamie, you've led the way for us. That is true leadership. Give us a sense of who you are, where you're from. Are you with a workforce board? Are you with an industry association? Are you an intermediary? Maybe a college system? Give us a sense, maybe you're a policymaker, researcher. That's actually also part of our conversation. We'll focus on that as well. Give us a sense of where you're coming from. Oh, and Henry, I love you. I hope we're both happy in 7 days. I don't know how that works, but I hope we're both happy in 7 days. 7 days. We are here to talk about probably, potentially one of the most misunderstood levers in the apprenticeship conversation, which is group sponsorship. Perhaps maybe long thought as a union activity, but lots of experiences on why that's not necessarily true any longer. It is a huge lever for scale. It can make things happen very fast. There's a reason we titled this Apprenticeship in 4 weeks. Because when you use the right tools and systems and players at the table, you can ramp things up very, very quickly. So we'll get into how today. We'll talk a lot more about the how. But our systems, they are under they're stretched, right? We need to try to do more with less as much as possible. And that is a mission I think we all are on, where we're trying to expand apprenticeship both in Canada, where I am based, as well as in the United States, where Natasha, Brandy, many of the audience members are. And it's all about removing friction. For us, you're gonna hear us talk a lot about how we're trying to remove friction from the system and make things as smooth as possible for everybody in the ecosystem. And we'll hear especially from Brandy, especially on sort of the role of intermediaries on how they remove friction. We'll hear from Natasha on, as a group sponsor, how do they remove friction for individuals and for organizations, for employers. My job is to ask some hopefully not too silly questions and give the limelight over to Brandy and Natasha. And so as we're looking through it, got some great representation. We got Maryland, Illinois, we have California. So we're well represented across the continent, from the Midwest to the coasts, and it's great to see everybody. And thank you again for joining us today. Let's get started. What problem does group sponsorship solve? Let's go to Natasha. Let's give us an overarching view. What problem is group sponsorship solving?
I think one of the biggest things that it solves, at least in our area, is the ability for entering the apprentice world to jump in and be able to truly do it in 4 weeks. If it's something you're like, this would be a great opportunity for me to grow my organization, but I'm not at a point where I can scale hiring or entering into rapids, hiring instructors. A group partnership allows you to jump straight in and start doing that. So it works for small groups. It works for 1 and 2 man shops. It works for huge organizations that want to just have great training across the country that's consistent. It works for tech colleges that we work with across across the country as well. They're able to be that LEA partner for that group and being able to provide what they're navigating down and having to find people that are experts in areas such as on-the-job training and employers. And mostly, I think it works for the employees and the apprentice themselves in providing and de-risking some of that aspect that might hinder them from getting hired. And an employer is more likely to be able to hire someone if they know I'm going to get good training, but I'm not going to have to find the instructor. I'm not going to have to do all that reporting the entire time. There's someone to walk me through it. So I think that's what it solves.
And so maybe make it real for us. Let's talk about one of your employers. How big are they generally? What kind of administration do you think they'd be going through? Otherwise, a lot of the audience may already know this, but talk to us about maybe one of your employers.
So I'll kind of give 2 stories. One is one that just last week we had a company there, a 2-man electrical shop. He got his journeyman's 4 years ago. He's now got his electrical master's license and wants to hire someone and put him in the apprentice program. He doesn't have the funds or the bandwidth in order to do that by himself. Could he go and submit standards? Yeah, he could write some standards. He could submit them in the state of Florida, and then you could try to hire someone to educate him. But he came to us and he said, I went through your program. I graduated from your program. Now I'm my own business. How do I get in? I'm like, no problem. He joined our association and he starts an apprentice in January. So he was able to, that student will now, not only do they have a new job, they have a new career moving forward, but at the same time, there's no way that he could have done that by himself. So real world story of a contractor who is living the dream, right? He went through the program, he graduated, 0 debt coming out of that, making money, started his own business, and now he's giving that opportunity to someone else. On the flip side, we have over 100 contractors in it. We have a contractor that has thousands of employees across the world. And so for them, it solves problems because sometimes those electricians are traveling. Some of them might be in Germany, they might be in Canada, they might be in California, or they might be in Florida. And because we're able to offer that online program for them through our program, these students don't miss a beat. And these big companies can can concentrate on building what we need built and not on trying to find a program or a person to put in Rapids. And that's a large company that, if I said the name, you'd all know it. It is building probably in every state represented here.
Well, and I guess for those small and medium-sized employers, even medium-sized, there's a
Yeah.
lot of work you'll do in year one, but you will never do again until the next time you bring in a year one. And small
Right.
small employers may never be more than 2 or 3 apprentices at a time.
Yeah.
Brandy, how about from your vantage point? What problem is this solving? We've heard from Natasha on the electrical side.
Yeah, for us, we work really not only with the trades and partnerships with organizations like IEC and ABC in Florida and other states, but we really do focus on other occupations as well. One of our largest registered apprenticeship group programs is automotive. And for us, if you delve into some of those occupations that are a little bit more independent, everyone wants their own thing, right? But it is very expensive. It also kind of counteracts what a lot of the larger vision for registered apprenticeship is, which is we want these big employers to be part of it. We want the small and medium-sized employers to be a part of it, but it becomes such a lift, especially when you want to customize it. Not every employer is built the same, especially even if they are within the same occupation. So for us, because not only do we serve as an intermediary, we are a group sponsor of our own because we have in-house curriculum developers, we have in-house instructors, we are looked at as we have strong partnership with LEAs, not only in the state of Florida, but in other states. So it allows us to customize a lot of this curriculum for them, like Ms. Natasha said, without having the burden of the cost attached to it. So we bring background into how to get funding, not only for them, but on their behalf to build these programs for them. And then they get to be a part of things that maybe they don't want to build these. I don't want my own custom curriculum. I just want my employee to have this. I want to benefit my employee. I want to keep my employee. I want to grow my community. I want to grow our ecosystem or this industry, whether it's an innovative or classic one. But apprenticeship can often seem like a very heavy lift. It can also be classically associated with joint or union programs. And that's not the case, especially like IAC, which is a massively supportive association that is non-joint. It is merit shop based. So it can benefit both sides if that's how you're looking at it.
Yeah. That was actually our first experience also was an offshoot of an electrical association of private employers, non-union employers. And that was the first time we sort of got into the work. I believe the founder of that organization is actually with us today, which is cool. Thanks for joining us, Stephen. And that, it very much, we used to, tongue in cheekily, we used to say it was kind of like Tinder for apprentices, because you might have an apprentice who was rolling off a job on a Thursday and left alone to their own devices might wait weeks and weeks before they jumped onto a new job, where a group sponsor, depending on the structure and how you set it up, could have them on their next job within a handful of days. And so that was our application in Ontario, a little different from what Natasha and Brandy are talking about. But you were removing so much friction. And so you would actually have apprentices complete when they were expected to complete. They wouldn't be sitting on the bench and taking employment insurance or doing other social services things for a long period of time. They were quickly, rapidly moving from job to job, even if it meant across employers. So lots of different applications. Do we have, I'm sure we do have, a bunch of folks who are maybe industry associations, maybe even employers themselves. Could you drop in the chat, A, were you familiar with group sponsorship before? But B, would you build your own? Would you join one had you known if this existed before? Maybe just let's get a little bit of a back and forth in the chat going. A, I already forgot my A and my B, but A, if you're an industry.
Were you familiar with it, and would you
Were
join?
you familiar? Thank you, Natasha. I'm so glad
Yeah, Natasha pays attention.
Were you familiar with it? And also, have you been considering either joining or building your own? And we can take a look at some of those.
While you're looking at that, I thought one more. I saw a couple of community colleges and workforce development groups over here. So one area I would say the group sponsorship problem it also solves that I didn't think about before, but work heavily with like community colleges and our career workforce development boards is group would solve that problem of you have an employer that comes to you and wants to start an apprentice program, and you want to help them, but it's one person, right? So instead of trying to help write them, build them, find the right people, that makes you a winner as well. So it gives you an easy win. So those career source workforce boards working with the groups, an intermediary like Brandy can go straight to them and you look like the winner, right? You're the leader, you're the solver, you're the fixer, and we can help do all the things behind the scenes. And whether that's, I've talked electrical, but Chapman and Brandy know, but I run the Florida Apprenticeship Association as well. So I'm happy to help connect you, if anybody comes. I love when someone says, locksmithing is the one that came to me recently. I'm like, okay, let's figure out what we can find, or childcare. And so I think for those workforce boards, that's a solution that a group helps, as well as the community colleges / tech colleges, where you want to be involved with it and don't exactly know why, because this is the answer for many of your students.
Yeah.
But maybe you're just not in that situation where I want to build and do all that. That's where the groups come in and partner really well. And I function because of my community colleges and tech colleges, and they're able to serve so many apprentices because of that relationship. So, and they'll call us in sometimes. So we do work as a group. They just said, hey, we have a new company that wants to know their linemen. Could you come tell them how you work with us? And so that we become that partner as well. So I think that's the other rub, that friction that a group helps, is because they are looking out for the big group whole. So if you're a workforce board or a company or a tech college or a community college, those groups kind of bring everybody into, no pun intended, a group. It kind of develops that. So as those answers are coming in.
I'd even say, to further that thought, that you'd be surprised when you have a group sponsor involved, how willing colleges or LEAs or community colleges or state colleges are to be flexible in their curriculum, and how many articulations you can get out of things like this when you have group sponsorships with large, medium, small employers throughout your community of a specific ecosystem and an occupation that says, well, this is what we want. Now you're really bringing employers back into education, like everyone is screaming for. And you'd be surprised how well group sponsorships work for that, because you're speaking on behalf of, it's almost an association within an association. This is the voice of our employers. And it is much easier to be flexible and custom in your curriculum and the certifications you're giving and the actual education, both hands-on framework and RTI framework, technical instruction that you're teaching, when you have group sponsorship, rather than, even if you're a large employer. I have large employers that we manage their apprenticeships without sponsoring it directly, who don't have as much flexibility with some of the colleges they partner with, because they're a single employer no matter how large they are. So also something to kind of chew on.
Brandy, maybe pointed for you. How long does it take you to stand up a group sponsorship? What if you're helping somebody sort of get started? How long does that take for you?
Yeah, so I guess I would say it depends, and I hate that answer, but that's what the answer I'm famous for giving. A, how many employers are interested? B, do we already have that occupation stood up? C, what are your certifications that you are looking for? Because we do not, another thing that we don't do, and you'll find this a lot with group sponsorships, is I always say we're like a good hairdresser. You don't go to a good hairdresser and say, I have black hair, I want to be platinum blonde today. She's going to say, probably not good, not a good idea. That's not going to work. So group sponsors and intermediaries are known for saying that great thought, great sentiment. This is practically how you're going to execute that. So I would say it depends on the practicality of the execution, the occupation, what it is that you're looking for, how far in it you are. If there's already an occupation that exists, that we are stood up for group sponsorship and or are connected with a separate group sponsor that already has it, it can be very quickly. Just like Ms. Tasha said, you can be a small employer that just partners with an existing large group sponsorship. If you want to start your own group sponsorship, and let's say this group sponsor that you're choosing and or you are your own group sponsor, and you're saying, for whatever reason in my state or nationally, I'm qualified to be this group sponsor, you want to stand up a brand new registered apprenticeship. It depends on what state you're in. I'll use Florida as the example. It does take we are a little bit quicker on the registered standards portion, a little bit longer on some of the other regulations within it. So I would say anywhere between 90 and 120 days, depending on what kind of curriculum are you looking for? What kind of certifications are you looking for? And that's brand new. That's talking fresh. That's not, you are a brand new group sponsor, you want to be a group sponsor, you are qualified in your state to be a group sponsor, you have a couple of employers, maybe you're part of a large chamber and you represent an industry and you want to represent them and you want to educate this particular industry. I would say anywhere between 90 and 120 days to have a high quality registered apprenticeship with all the bells and whistles, which is what matters. And I know we'll get into kind of the retention in a second.
Well, so I actually want to pivot back to we started talking a little bit about workforce boards, which I think is important, and policy. Apprenticeship policy is it's ripe for innovation right now. Huge opportunities and things that are happening. Maybe from the ground, you guys will have your own sort of individual experiences, and if there are policymakers in the room, at the end of this conversation, we'll flash up a quick slide with our free gives and our free takes because we have asks from all of you. But maybe what we can start with as a question is tell us about the leverage points. Natasha, you started getting into it, but how can workforce boards and or policymakers, two different audiences aware of it, but interact quite closely, how can they pull leverage from the group sponsorship idea? Tasha, can we start with you?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest leverages is that, and I guess back up a step too, a lot of what, we're hearing is let me help you. A company comes in, they they love the apprentice idea. They've heard it. They don't know much about it, but I want an apprentice program. And there'll be a lot of time and effort, funds, time, people time spent on trying to figure out how do you stand it up for that one company. And instead of that time that's spent on that and those dollars, I think the leverage is that it probably exists. And so taking that moment, so the time spent getting to know your group sponsors in the area could be an easy handoff. So instead of trying to build, I'm going to be selfish and use mine because I know it. So, electrical company comes in and says, I've heard all these great things about electricians. I'd really like to get my guys to become journeymen in the state of Florida. And so instead of saying, okay, let's write some standards, let's submit them to the state. We're going to take a couple of weeks to get that approved or changed on quick basis. Then we're going to go help you find an instructor. We're going to write down your OJT. The quick leverage part of that would be no problem. Hold on. Let me connect you with a couple of my group partners, IEC, ABC, BAEA. I'm pulling out some letters in Florida. Let me connect you with those people and see if that's the right fit. And so what we've started finding is that the career sources, our workforce boards in the state of Florida or in other areas across the country as they do it, that will reach out to those group sponsors can then help that individual company so much quicker. And so instead of having to start a whole new one, literally they are within that 4 weeks or less than, we'll be able to get you into a group sponsorship. So I think that's the first big leverage to realize. And from policy down, I think that's the other part that we look at is we want to increase, we have this mandate or we have this goal of how many apprentices we're going to create across the country, which I think is amazing. And literally my whole life shift. But I also think we need to look at the idea of funding that group sponsors and providing funding, not funding them, providing that funding rather than looking at one-offs, because group funding also provides the sustainability over time that, as you talked about briefly, how many first years are you going to bring in? If you're not a good company, if you're not a large company, you're bringing in the first year, they go to second, and electrical third, fourth, then you might be doing another one. A group sponsorship gives you that. They also give you some really good credibility of reporting, some consistency in that. We've got going into rapids, we've got it put correct. As rapid changes and moves, do you know the occupations? How do you work apprentice in a VA? How do you work the GI Bill with them? All of those little minute individual entities that make it so much better. And so I think that's where you pull that lever on that, is because you've just got all that power, pulling at one end rather than trying to get little bits, let me get the standards written, let me find an instructor, let me find you a curriculum. Do you want to do this? How are you going to do online? What if they go away? They got to go travel somewhere. So I think if we focused on that, we really could. I have a first grader, so she's learning math right now, and I have a sixth grader, and they're learning different math, trying to help each other. And they're talking about, my son was trying to explain exponential to him. That's what it is. So you go from like first grade math of adding 1 + 1 + 1 to now the sixth graders adding, and we're doing exponential. So we are just making leaps and bounds. So I think that's the leverage in it.
Friends, you have a bunch of experience with workforce boards as well. You have some data information, things like that. You're also a big policy expert that I rely on a lot, Brandy. Anything to add to the conversation around workforce boards, policymakers?
Yeah, absolutely. I would, as I usually do, piggyback directly off of Ms. Natasha and say a lot of success that surrounds really, really great high standard registered apprenticeship programs with great completion rates and successful retention rates is within the minutia. It's within the nuance. Everyone wants great standards. Everyone wants to have their own curriculum. Everyone wants to implement it. But group sponsorship provides so much leverage with the nuance of it. And I'm actually going to reference a note from Miss Kelly Strain on the chat that I think is a good tie-in here within the difference of national developed guidelines and national program standards versus state by state standards. And I think this ties in really well when group sponsors, if you are, even if you're a very large association, the IECs of the world, the ABCs, the home builders associations, the tech associations, etc., even hospitals. It may make sense if you're like, hey, I already have five or more states that are going to be doing the same thing. We run the same programs. We all have the same policies. We're making a national registered apprenticeship. I would encourage everyone has a different goal and mission. I am a little obsessed with policy, a little obsessed with verbiage, wording.
It's such an understatement. If you know Brandy, a little obsessed with policy is a dramatic understatement.
And I think that's another leverage that that group sponsors bring is that again that nuance of knowing if you are a large trade association that has a lot of independent employers within you, or even a large association or large group. And I like to use automotive because they're very unique in how they're built. You can have 100 different independently owned automotive dealerships that belong to one group, but they're all independently owned under this large group parent. And that large group parent can have a group sponsorship. Well, all of those dealerships run differently, and they might need different things because they build different brands or they sell different brands or fix different brands. One national standard for that registered apprenticeship may sound good in theory if that's your end goal. But if the end goal is to expand that apprenticeship within each state, you'll find that if you are not registered in each state, you're going to lose out on things like workforce development funds, workforce development support, reimbursements for wages, subsidies, state-driven grants, such as in the state of Florida's Pathways to Career Opportunity Grant. You can be a nationally registered apprenticeship program, but if you're not registered in the state of Florida, you're not allowed to apply for that grant. So yes, it is very nuanced. It is annoying. Every state has different regulations. Every state doesn't even use rapids. Some of you may be in states where you're like, what's rapids? Well, if you don't know what rapids are in most of the states, then you're going to be confused on that. So again, that's where group sponsorship works. Another point that Ms. Natasha made earlier is if you are a large employer who your corporate is here in Georgia, in Macon, Georgia, but you have a large organization and you're doing work right now in Germany because it's specialized machinery work and your guys and gals are specialized in this particular machinery. Well, technically, your person's in Germany right now. Do you have the bandwidth, the staff, the understanding to know the regulations and the compliances behind how to keep that registered apprenticeship compliant and how to get your reimbursements, which workforce development board is going to help you with those wage reimbursements for your smaller employers that are part of your group sponsorship? So I hate to say that everything goes back to funding, but it is quite true sometimes that if you want to expand some of these registered apprenticeship programs, which is ultimately at the core of it, and not to be flowery, but it's expanding people's opportunities and career pathways. And if you want to keep your businesses and your industries growing, it's kind of a necessary evil to understand each state and their funding and their workforce boards. And do you have workforce boards within your state? Are your federal funds for apprenticeships directed to colleges, or are they directed to your workforce board in your state? Or do you have hubs in your state, like in Virginia? What kind of state are you in? Who is receiving these funds? So I think that's another thing, another piece of the menu of the nuanced that group sponsorships really help bring.
And one of the things I've read around workforce boards in particular, and this may be an inaccurate stat, but it comes from a fairly reputable source. And so we can dispute whether or not the stat is specifically right or directionally informative. I think it's at least directionally informative. That's something that only about 0.3% of BDRs and workforce boards have a genuine understanding of how apprenticeship is deployed. And so that can also, for workforce boards, there's huge opportunities to meet workforce board goals while also leveraging group sponsorship. And so we'll talk about this a little bit later in the conversation. We'll just keep a quick time check as we are going to work real hard to keep 10 minutes for open Q&A. And we've already got a couple coming in. So that's lovely. In the chat, if you are a workforce board, if you can just drop on your level of confidence, say on a scale of 1 to 10, could your board place, or if you're a workforce development organization, could your board place an employer within 30 days today? Knowing what you know about your organization, could they do that within 30 days into an apprenticeship program if someone came to you? Let's move along on the topics. This can't all be flowers and beautiful things. So if I'm an employer, I'm going to play the role of employer. I'm going to say, Natasha, this sounds too good to be true. Let's roll it back. Let's dial back the words. Hey, Natasha, this sounds great. But here's my problem. If I'm just one of 100 employers, how do I know my people aren't going to jump ship? How do I know that they're like my talent is really important to me? So Brandy, Natasha, whichever order, we'll let you decide. But how do you talk to employers about what feel like very real risks about their talent being a part of this group sponsorship?
Brandy, you want to go first on this one, then I'll tag on to the backs.
Sure. I'm going to go back to the chat again because Mr. Steven Sell made a great point that group sponsorship is support for both the apprentice and the employer, and it's key to a sustainable program, and that's what this is. Group sponsorship is you'll see that. Oh, one moment. The BDR comment Mr. Datman just made, if you're interested in that data reporting, it was released by SAFL last year. AFA did have that. I hate to put you on the chopping block, Harry, but I know they did present that officially last year. They were the Center of Excellence for Apprenticeship under SAFL did publish that report last year if you're interested in looking at their workforce development boards, WIOA funds, BDRs, how many of them know what apprenticeship is, et cetera, et cetera. But to your question, group sponsorships, you'll see that doesn't often happen because it, if anything, is ingrained in retention and support. So I'm brand new. I'm going to give myself all the vulnerabilities, right? I'm Hispanic. I'm a woman. I am young. I want to be a carpenter. And I'm good. I'm detailed. I show up on time. I'm early. I am dedicated. I want to be an apprentice. I'm part of a small organization. They maybe have 30 employees within this. I'm under a general contractor who got his license through apprenticeship. He owns his own company. I do residential work with him, right? So with a lot of vulnerabilities there, not only under my employer, but under me and what I'm doing, but I'm good. So I look good, and I'm gonna be very honest on this call. I look good on a lot of people's data, right? I'm a minority, I'm an apprentice, I can get you bids because of that apprenticeship number and data, et cetera, right? So I can be poached. But because my employer decided to invest in me, and because I'm an apprentice, and because registered apprenticeship, not only registered apprenticeship, but group registered apprenticeships encourage safe workplaces, encourage good practices, encourage third-party check-ins, encourage mentorship, and all of these things. The likelihood of someone being able encourage basic wage paying, standardization for that. The likelihood of someone being able to poach me is not high. The likelihood of maybe my group sponsor being able to say your employer got laid off from this bid, therefore you're being benched for a couple weeks, but I can put you over here if you want, is also very likely. So I would say, and Miss Natasha works much closer with the actual employers than I do, where I'm very high level in compliance and regulation. So she can speak more to this. But in my experience, especially in the trade spaces, which I know is not it's the majority, but it's not the only one. The likelihood of being able to poach someone or the want to, because if you're part of a group apprenticeship and sponsorship, it's because you need to retain your people. So the likelihood of you having the staff and the bandwidth to go out and poach is also not going to happen. Not that it's not going to happen, but it doesn't happen often. And there's just a lot of accountability there. There's a lot of sewing into not only the employer, but the actual apprentice, which that's what makes it work.
Thank you, Brandy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say it is a concern. It's an absolutely open and honest concern. And I hear it every now and then when we have new companies. So as I mentioned, we have about 120 contractors throughout the state of Florida. And we don't. And I know 4-year program, we don't see poaching from internally. Part of it is because they respect each other, because a group partnership, this group apprentice something is something they all own too. All 120 of our partner, our contractors take ownership and pride in it. And what they are often bidding against each other in the same projects, and they will share like who got the bid, and they're like, oh, we got it. They do that, but we do not see that because they respect each other, that they see people of like-mindedness that are contributing to the same industry, and everybody, they see that a rising tide raises all ships. So as we bring people in, they will even go to job fairs together with us, knowing that they're going to be helping recruit probably for somebody else, that because they're not going to be hire every student that comes in. They also see, and I think this is part of it too, those apprentices hear the good and bad of every company at night. So they're all in class together, right? So they're not just hearing the shiny that if someone was trying to poach them, that sometimes when they do leave, if they leave, and it happens very rarely, I will say out of, like, again, 568 we'll have this year. This year so far, we're only a few months in, have had none. Last year, I think we had 2 or 3 that left. They went to external companies who then joined IEC and then kept them in the apprentice program and saw the value of it because they hear the good and the bad. And a lot of times when they're getting poached by external, it's because all they're hearing is the flowers and unicorns and pixie dust. And when they're in a class, they're like, yeah, we get worked hard too, or yeah, this happened. They hear all the true stories. And so I literally a lot of times will just put them with a contractor and say, hey, look, has it happened? And it doesn't.
One of the things we chatted about, team, believe it or not, we're not doing this entirely on the fly. We in fact did prepare this conversation. But when we did prepare a bit, Natasha, I think maybe one or maybe both of you made this comment loosely. People aren't, from what you're seeing.
Yeah.
I'm just tying this to what Debbie has just written in chat, which is, there's that old meme, right? It's like, what if we train them and they leave? And the other guy's like, well, what if we don't and they stay?
Right.
And one of the things, Brandy, Natasha, we were talking about in our prep session was, what you're seeing is people just really aren't leaving for 15 cents or $1 or a couple dollars anymore. Can you speak just a tad more to that?
Absolutely. And I will say it shows the commitment, and it truly is that return on investment. So when you see that they are investing, and you're a first-year apprentice, and they see them investing in you, you're not buying your books, you're not paying for it. You're also seeing them invest in everybody else so that you know that there is a career for you. This is not just a job of the now. And so you're not leaving for the 5, 10, 15 cents an hour. You know that that individual has a partnership with you, right? So I have invested in Jatman. Jatman is not going to go leave for 5 cents because I also see that he sees that I've invested in Brandy, and Brandy's moving up. And maybe Brandy was a 4th-year apprentice when I joined last year, and now Brandy's an estimator. So now I see the progression within my own company. And then I also say, well, if they invest for me for 4 years, they're probably going to invest in me the next 40 years. And then you have long-term employees. And so we see that regularly, that they stay because they see the program. So the apprenticeship doesn't just educate them, make them safer on the job, make the industry more respectable across the board. It makes the individual feel more invested. It also even makes the rest of your company, who may be not an apprentice, but maybe it's an office worker, or maybe it's someone who's come in as an estimator. If you see your company continuing to invest in those around them, it also makes you feel valuable. And we know that from research, is that I feel valuable when you're investing everybody who has to work with me, right? So I'm not the one carrying all the load. We're all being invested. And I hate using the same thing, but a rising tide raises all ships. So when I'm investing in those around me in the company, we're all moving up too. And we see that every day, that people have retention rates go up when they join group apprentice programs, and not just the apprentices, it's employees in general.
Yeah, it's a cultural build, and people don't, for any leaders in here, any executives, anyone who works within marketing, not marketing as in campaigning, but data analytics, understanding markets, understanding regions, you will know that a lot of your business build really depends on cultural relevance, especially internally. And there is a lot of data that shows that registered apprenticeship programs, and especially those who are standard and have base pay raises and increasing titles and positions and opportunities, do raise cultural relevance within your organization.
Yeah. We have a number of folks who identified themselves as college associated, community college associated. So maybe in chat, what I'll ask folks to do is if you are in the community college world, what RTI programs either are you or could you be offering with a group sponsor? That's the critical part of the question, with a group sponsor. If you are already, that'd be great to see some of the good work you're doing and sharing that and teaching that to others. If you're not, maybe if you have the opportunity to just brainstorm in your mind a little bit, what RTI programs could you be offering in the context of a group sponsorship? Before we segue into towards the end of our conversation and open it up, I'm just going to drop LinkedIn direct links to all three of us. If you would like to connect with us more, that's probably the easiest first step. You've got my email address on screen, and I'm happy to connect you more directly to Brandy and Natasha as well. Brandy, Natasha, Brandy, we'll start with you on this one. So, in short language, where is this all heading? There's all sorts of future work happening. There's new occupations. There's AI. Everybody's talking AI, data centers. And what does good look like? So, Brandy, we'll start with you. Where is this all going? What about all these new future occupations? And what's the deal with AI and data centers and all those types of things? Talk to us about that.
My fave. So obviously registered apprenticeship, naturally, everyone associates the word apprenticeship with skilled trades, or automotive or blue collar jobs naturally in America, in the Americas, right? But it's so much more than that. And that's really what expanding the registered apprenticeship model looks like, is going into not only new and innovative, but being innovative within existing occupations. Um, I don't know how many of you have recently seen the talk that the CEO from NVIDIA had, Jensen Huang, and talking about how the new extremely wealthy upcoming generation is going to be trade workers. Not because there's this rush in housing or commercial development, but in data centers. And that's kind of one of my favorite. And if you are interested at all in group sponsorship for data centers or data center specialties occupations, I would love to introduce any of you to the coalition that I'm working with that's building those occupations out. But it really is, you hear AI and you're like, they're taking jobs from people. And that's not the case. And I'll talk with two examples. What NVIDIA is talking about is, in order for their chips to be relevant, in order for these massive servers to exist and these data centers to exist, someone has to build it. And not just HVAC technicians, specialty HVAC technicians, technicians who are cleared, technicians who know how to work within a data center, who know what a data center needs. It's is not an HVAC unit for a school or for a hospital. This is an HVAC unit that's going to be working harder than any HVAC unit you've ever seen, because it's keeping an acre of servers cooled down. And that is such a specialty in itself. And the demand for that is going up by the hundreds of percent. This is not a normal labor force growth. This is exponential. Not only that, but I'll also reference a lot of negative comments were being made because recently AWS, I think last week, announced that they're doing, Amazon announced that they're doing this mass layoff, right? And I kind of want to use that as an example to how this is not bad for AI. This is not they're laying off because AI is taking these people's jobs. They're laying off because they needed to make a financially responsible decision, because they need capital to purchase more chips so like that AWS can expand their server capacity, because they need these massive data centers. What they didn't highlight is, although they're laying off 30,000 leaders, what they are is hiring massive amounts and troves technicians to help them build out their AWS data centers, because they now have the capital to purchase all these new chips to expand their AWS services. So understanding where market is going is really going to help you understand between DOL intermediaries. And if you are on the call and do not know what a DOL funded intermediary, I'm going to do a shameless plug and ask you to connect with Miss Debbie Hopkins that I see on the call. I think Miss Jamie, our very first comment, is also with Fastport, who is a U.S. DOL registered apprenticeship intermediary, Miss Jamie Pace. Please connect to them. Or if you're more interested in some of the nuance, state by state, please feel free to connect to me, because that's what group sponsorship is as well, is understanding the market deeper than your own industry, deeper than your own occupation, to see where are these labor needs at, not just in theory.
And I might even just be overly direct, and Brandy can help. Like, this is so Brandy, as an intermediary is not competition. Yes, FTA has group sponsorships. They're not competition. They're connectors. And so if you are looking to find yourself, either maybe you don't want to build your own, maybe you want to join and you're just not sure what's out there. The more you talk to Brandy, the more you realize there's no limit to how much this lady knows. She's awesome. So if you do just have curiosity, just I'm offering Brandy. Feel free to reach out to Brandy.
If you think I'm yapping here, let me know.
Natasha, how about you? Talk to us about the future. What are you seeing?
Well, and it's funny, just tagging on to the whole AI and you need HVAC and HVAC needs electrical. So I know we're working with a couple of our large contractors that are needing to put 600 people for 3 years to build in El Paso and build a large, and those 600 won't leave. Some of them will leave to go build more, but 150 or so is what they will leave, permanent employees at a new building that will be there on site just to keep those data centers running. And that's one across Arkansas, across the Midwest, and the entire, locations of where they will need those employees. So yes, AI will change. It'll just change what we do and how we do, which is the other part that as I listened that I thought we may have failed to mention is the other part of a group partnership, a group sponsorship is sometimes there's additional occupations that you can add on. So I saw someone earlier, low voltage. So we do heavy a start in a commercial electrician towards a journeyman's license. But then we had people who want low voltage. So we have a low voltage apprentice program. So when you finish one does not mean you're finished being an apprentice. You can jump into a different apprentice program. We have, companies that are HVAC, electrical, plumbing. They got people doing all the apprenticeships. Now we have solar. Solar fields are almost as, I think they're gonna be fighting for land between solar fields and the data centers. Maybe put the solar on top of the data centers. But you will have opportunities. And I think that's where I see the future of it is, we're relatively safe. I say in the state of Florida, when we talk essential labor, Florida's scared of a lot of things. I mean, we're not scared of a lot of things. Like mosquitoes the size of pterodactyls don't scare us. Florida man, alligators, crossing you're swimming in your pool. None of that scares us. What scares us is the lack of air conditioning, which is dependent on electricity. And thank goodness we're almost done with hurricane season. But those are the things that scare us. So I will never have an unemployed electrician or HVAC technician in Florida. But I think that is across the country, there are situations like that. So I see you will need electric. What is changing is how that electricity gets to us. How does it come in? What does it look like? And then what are the things like battery storage and restorage and the data centers and generators and clean energy. And I think that apprenticeship is the model that allows us to change, right? You don't got to go back to college. You don't have to go take time off from work to go learn a new technique or a new technician or a new skill. When your company believes in apprenticeship, when your college believes in apprenticeship, when your career source, your workforce board of leaders, believes in apprenticeship, you just keep growing it. And the group model allows you to say, you know what? I'm going into low voltage. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know I need to be in low voltage. No problem. I've got a low voltage apprenticeship program. Send your guys back. They did good the 4 years. Now we got 2 years. I want solar. No problem. We can do solar. And I think that's where when we look at the future of it, I said this probably when I started 3 years ago, I believe that we will see more and more careers that used to be 4 to 6 to 8 years of college that will soon be apprenticeships. One of the one that's clear we're seeing in Florida is we have an accounting apprenticeship starting coming into Florida. You don't need to, my poor accounting daughter is sick and tired of her humanities classes and so forth. And she's like, if I could have just done an apprenticeship, this would have been so much better. So I think we will see more and more of those. And when we really think of it, med school's an apprenticeship. They just pay a lot more money for it,
Yeah.
Florida is also the largest growing for nursing, medical assistant, LPNs for registered apprenticeship, which is very hard compliantly to do. But
and IT. And by the time you graduate college with an IT degree, everything you learned is out of date. So continuing apprentice programs continue. So I'll go on to Chapman.
Well, no, and to pile on the end, we have teacher apprenticeship representatives in the group as well today. I saw a couple of names that I know are doing amazing work in teaching apprenticeships. I think what I'll end off here, and then I want to flash up this quick give and take slide for everybody so that we can offer ourselves to the community. I think it's maybe I'll just say it pointedly, and I'm sure many of us feel this way, is the frustration of just another pilot. I think what we're seeing is that for the policymakers in the room, I think it's the idea that look, this works. And Harry mentioned it off the top, like you want 3 million apprentices is achievable if we apply this thinking and now actually start putting weight behind it. And so I'll use that as a segue to, I'm hoping everybody can see our little graphic here. Um, Depending on who you are, right? We're willing, if you're a workforce board and you want to, you're either and maybe workforce board. We saw a comment that, used to be part of workforce board, or that your state's workforce boards maybe aren't as proficient in apprenticeship. We will do a webinar like this for free for your workforce board. Just reach out, let us know. We'd love to do that for you, because again, like, we can help workforce boards hit their goals. And if it's just a matter of a little bit of education, we are happy to do that. That said, before you hire more apprenticeship navigators, talk to a group sponsor, please. Talk to us if you don't know one, but talk to a group sponsor. So don't just do that thing, do this thing, please. Community colleges, systems. Natasha, maybe you want to take a hot second to explain this, but the work that you've done in Hillsborough and Tallahassee and the templates that you're willing to share, do you have 30 seconds to talk about that?
Absolutely. I'm happy to share all of those. We work with state colleges, technical colleges, community colleges, whatever your title is, K-12 system or separately funded. Happy to share the contracts we use, the models we use. Some of those are straight. We provide everything. They provide the funding. Other ones we partner to bring in students. We're now running pre-apprenticeship programs together. So from a community college system, please feel free to reach out. I have all the freedom from all of my partners to share all of our contracts, what worked, didn't work, and grants, all the things that we've done. And I do believe that is such a pathway that we have missed on so many. So please, please, please reach out. We are doing some really cool things in that area.
And now that I've got you, maybe you want to speak to the take a little bit as well, right? What would you like to see from more community college systems, and maybe just take a hot second for that?
I think the big thing is too, to look at us as a resource, to reach out, whether it's IEC or Brandy, or to, reach out and we can connect you with the right person in your area. Let us help you find that, instead of trying to start a whole new one and trying to then, where do we put things? Again, it's almost that same take. Before you hire a new navigator, before you start a new program, reach out to the group that are in the area, because there may be already some rolling cohorts that could really benefit from your buildings, your finances, your people. But we could also contribute to some really great retention and results, because one of my community colleges and state colleges love the fact that all of my employees, all of my apprentices are hired at high wages when they leave, which is usually two of the buttons they need to check off: hired and high wages when they complete the program. And a large portion of mine complete, which really puts them in the upper echelons. And it actually brings in additional funding for their other programs. So the money we bring in for them essentially brings in money for them to fund other, maybe underrepresented, new and evolving, or programs that are not yet apprenticeable, but maybe in the future.
Perfect. Can everybody still hear me? My Zoom has just told me it crashed.
Yep, we can hear you.
Fantastic. You won't see me, but you'll hear me, I guess. So for policymakers and researchers, one of the things that both Natasha and Brandy did offer up in our prep session was just, there are so many things they're seeing on the ground. Open office hours are available to you if you'd like to chat further about, maybe if you're trying to distill the nuances. Brandy's favorite word, nuances, is like how to measure what to measure. You can't see my smirk, it's too bad. Is that feel free to reach out. But then also, yes, pilot these programs, like make them progression oriented, and like double down. Like there's facts behind this group sponsorship model. Let's double down on that. And then maybe employers and association, Brandy, I'll pass this one to you if you want to just quickly do the give and the take for this one.
Yeah, for employers, like if you're anyone who's looking for the trade specific hands-on trades, skilled trades, please connect with Ms. Tasha. She really does undersell herself when she says she's Florida Apprenticeship Association president. She is incredibly ingrained in so much policy making and writing. I have had the pleasure of working hand in hand with her and doing a lot of that, and understanding what those policies look like. And for employers, you do not have to reinvent the wheel. You can join a cohort, you can get it done, you can be a part of something that's already existing. You do not have to reinvent the wheel. And a point that Mrs. Tasha made with the funding is, when you partner with these existing funding buckets, you'd be surprised how much your success and your retention, your completion rates benefits these institutions that are already getting this funding. And you'll also be further surprised when you walk in with someone like a liaison or a group sponsorship that understands, my favorite word, the nuance of the funding, And colleges, LEAs, workforce boards are going to be more willing and flexible to work with you because you already know what you're talking about. And the more educated you are, the easier it is. I'm going to take a quick second because there was a question earlier I really want to answer before we start running down on time. And someone asked, sponsorship entails some serious responsibilities for oversight and reporting. How do group sponsors acquire the resource to fulfill those responsibilities? Um, Again, my second favorite term, it depends. Do you want to be a group sponsor within your state? Do you want to be a group sponsor nationally? Each state has different regulations as to what qualifies a sponsor in general. If you're qualified to be a sponsor, you can be a group sponsor. That is a choice in how you set up your registered apprenticeship program. So group, it really just depends. But I do want to highlight that it is a serious responsibility. And registered apprenticeship programs have the highest standard with the highest compliances, with the best opportunity for long-term sustainable funding. Do take these responsibilities and these oversights very seriously because compliant, accurate, transparent data and kind of compliancy throughout your entire program is going to create a high functioning, high standard program in general, not only for the employer, but for the apprentice who's experiencing this, who overall is going to be your mouthpiece, who is your success story. Your apprentice is the point. That's
Yeah.
why I don't lose the focus of any of that.
Well,
So
and my little selfish plug is that's where we tend to support the most is from a partner perspective is yes, we're skills assessments, but in a lot of cases we try to operate as a operating system for group sponsorship. And so when Brandy speaks to, and I guess even the question asker Stephen, you speak to the reporting element. I mean, even with community colleges, right? Like the statement we have here is we'll do the reporting, you do the RTI for community colleges. Well, we'll do the reporting, we'll do the compliance, we'll do, and I say we as the group sponsor, not as Vimetric, but you know, maybe Brandy's voice, like we'll take care of all of that stuff. You do the thing, right?
Mhm.
We'll take care of
So
the
how
rest.
you require and fulfill those responsibilities, A, depends on your state, but B, if you're an employer who really cares and really just wants to uplift your industry, you are qualified as an employer first and foremost. An apprentice cannot be an apprentice without you. And secondly, if you are a community college, a workforce board, access to certain things like this, I highly encourage you to connect with either myself or a workforce development board or a DOL funded intermediary to find out how to further fulfill those requirements.
So we're gonna make for really bad radio and leave 30 seconds of dead air in case there are other questions. And then Harry, I'll pass it back to you. But for now, let's do some really bad radio.
I'm just reading a question here. I know you said, but one is, do you have a group sponsorship approved in Connecticut? And there is a, Kelly, I'll reach out. There is one. You have one, Brandy, and we have an electrical one there too. So
Oh, that's not a question, but I'll take flowers all day. Thank you, Debbie.
I will drop my email as well. Ms. Kelly, if you'd like to reach out, I'd be happy to jump on a call with you and talk about my experience, both up north in general and in Connecticut, Virginia. That general area tends to function very similarly. So please feel free to reach out to me. Oh, thank you, Chapman. I was going to fix that.
I got you. Harry, back to you, my friend. Brandy, Natasha, I love chatting with you. I think I might even love it more when there's 400 people watching. So I thank you to the stalkers and the watchers. Appreciate all of you for joining us for a few hours, for a few minutes or almost an hour. Harry, Freddie, back to you folks.
Awesome. I'll close us out. Chapman, Brandy, Natasha, thank you so much for your time and talking so passionately about this. It's great to see so many connections being made. Hopefully, we've created some new group sponsors in this conversation. We'll email around with Brandy, Natasha, and Chapman's contact details and everything after this. But yeah, let's give you a virtual round of applause for being such great advocates for this model that can really scale and grow apprenticeships. Final thing from us, we've got some more upcoming events. I'll post our events page in the sidebar. Next week, we've got another webinar on completion, looking at the research on increasing completion rates, useful tools that can help you improve completion in your programs. Last bit of news bulletin from AFA, our call for sessions for our summit next year in May is closing on Friday. So get your proposals in this week. And that is it. That is it from us today. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you, guys.